Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Girl Dad Show. I'm super excited to be introducing our next guest, Min, who I've been building a relationship with over the last few years. And I'm super excited to finally get him on the show to interview him for the many reasons why I love him and appreciate his relationship. But without further ado, Min, how are you doing, man? Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Young. I know we've been talking about this for quite some time, and I was able to pull it together. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Min, before we jump into questions, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners? Tell us what you do and what you're working on.
Yeah. So I've been my background's actually in engineering. That's how I started my career. But growing up, I always knew I was gonna be a business owner, being that my family all own a bunch of small businesses. So I kind of derailed my professional life into starting a startup in back in Michigan, and that was pretty fun, exciting, and I was happy enough to say that I had a successful exit in 2016, and that's when I moved to Austin in 17, and continuing to learn about the community and raising my family and spending time with my wife.
Yeah, I love that, man. Thanks for sharing that. And before we dig into your exit and the businesses that you've built, I'd love to just kind of share a little bit about my relationship with you. It's been really fun and interesting for me because I see you as a mentor more than anything else, but you've been kind enough to offer friendship as well through that process. But it's been really interesting getting to see you build a lot of community involvement and really figuring out ways to give back. And it's been very attractive to me to see you do that and be a part of so much of the ecosystem in our local area. And would love to know more about what made you want to do that, what made you do that, and what you're doing right now for the community.
One of the things I truly believe in is paying it forward, right? And being a business owner in a small town, being a minority, to be honest with you, wasn't always easy.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Austin, I've been visiting Austin since 2009. It's just a vibrant, welcoming city, and I just felt like there's just so much potential here. And my goal when I moved here was really, again, paying it forward and igniting really the minority Asian community. And I don't know if I shared this with you, but when I moved here, I didn't know anybody, and I just literally just did my own homework, try to find some places to volunteer, and I stumbled on a place called the Asian Chamber of Commerce, and I can't tell you how excited I was when I heard Asian Chamber of Commerce, right? So I spend a lot of my time there, and again, like yourself, right? A lot of young, hungry entrepreneurs wanting to make a difference. And I think the one key thing I would leave is, like, I would love for us to have a voice, right? And that's kind of my goal. And when I took over as the chair of the chamber, that's one of my biggest initiatives. I want to really try to level the playing field for everybody, and that's kind of what drives me working with the chamber in the community.
Yeah, is that from something that's happened in the past? Like, what's this desire to create a voice? Don't get me wrong, I love it, and I share a lot of sentiments with you. But I'm just curious, like, what was the genesis of that?
I'm always gonna shoot it like it is, right, Young? I think you know me well enough
Yes,
now,
sir.
and some folks love it and some folks don't. But I was born and raised in the States, so I always saw myself as a white American. I never saw color. Growing up, I had the chance to experience, I guess, kind of both worlds. But playing sports, going to school, just being a regular kid. But I really noticed the separation when I started my own business. Challenges, yes, that I had to face. Again, growing up not seeing color as a thing, right? And so I'm very competitive. Folks who are really close to me will tell you that when something ignites me, I just take it head on. And I feel like I did that with my business. And again, being coming from a small town, I wanted to kind of take that here and kind of lay the ropes and the rug out for the young entrepreneurs here to kind of show them that they're not the only ones that are going through the challenges or have gone through the challenges, right? And I want to try to fix that, man. I really do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Can you double click into some of those things that you noticed as you got older and started building a business?
One of the funniest stories I share with folks sometimes is, I started my company when Facebook was just kind of coming into
Oh
action,
wow.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
social media wasn't such a big thing, and I won't throw the name of the town under the bus here, but there were awards for 30 and 30 entrepreneurs, and I thought I should have been right up there, right? Being that I started a startup and it's taking it nationally, and I wasn't even considered, man. And I looked at the list of the folks that were considered, and I'm just shaking my head like, and nothing against graphic designers or writers or anything like that, but those are all kind of local folks, right? And I'm trying to think bigger scale as, I've taken this thing nationally, and I didn't even get, I guess, considered for that. And again, that really lit, add some fuel to my fire, and I'm like, I got to change this, right?
Well, that goes back to the voice thing. I mean, I will say that a lot of those awards and accolades and recognition are done through referrals and kind of like who you know, right? And so being able to break into the network is really hard and challenging for, I will say, Asians. And that's something that I've noticed in business as well, too, is getting yourself into the right rooms, right? To actually have these voices heard. So that is really interesting to hear that. Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting. Yeah, because I never heard about that problem as you got older. I know that I faced some of it. I learned a lot about it when I was younger, but that's interesting to see how it plays out as you got into business. Let's talk about the business that you actually did build, because it's a really exciting business. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what you did build and ultimately exited?
Yeah, so, I mentioned earlier I'm pretty competitive, right? I played pretty much every single sport growing up. I wasn't great at it, but I was actually pretty decent. I was a pretty decent athlete. And, when I actually met my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife for over 20 years, I
Oh,
always warned
wow.
her. Yeah, I warned her. I was like, hey, I'm going to go on, do something that's kind of sports related. That's really what I enjoyed. And I had her blessing, actually. I was really blessed in that way, that she's like, hey, go do you. Take a challenge, take a risk, and we did. I basically created something that wasn't being done in the market. And I literally took boring gray, what you see in the market, gray duct tape, and I designed it with college logos. This is what started it, right? So
Yeah.
in my backyard, and being an alum from Michigan State, that's kind of where I started. And the unique thing, Young, is I don't want to sound unappreciative of where I came from. So a lot of the folks there did really help me, grow the business. And I don't want to come out saying I did everything myself, right? But, you said something about relationship, and that's how I got a lot of my licensing, was through relationships that, folks that truly knew who I was and believed in me, right? And so I do appreciate those folks, and I don't want to sound like, again, I came from a place where I had to battle everything by myself. And I grew from one license to over 100 rights in less than 2 years. And
Oh,
so
wow.
we created, duct tape, packaging tape. I can't call it Scotch tape, but I can call it that now, right?
Yeah.
With college logos, and we just kept developing other trendy, licensing rights and products that we kept bringing to the market.
Oh, that's amazing. So you basically able to build a business around licensing and reselling the logos and monikers of these brands. Did you ever do sports teams, or is it all around the college?
It was sports team. It was everything, and and I'll take it one step back too, Young, is with my engineering background, right? I actually worked with the factory to develop the process of printing out duct tape, which isn't easy, because it involved fabric and things like that, and it takes multiple steps to actually make the product, and so it just kind of really blew up, overnight. It was
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
So awesome. It's really fun to hear these business stories where you're just like, how is that even a business? And then like you hear these things and it's just so incredible. Yeah, it's so awesome. I can't even imagine how you even came up with it and how you structured it. But it sounds like it was a lot of partnership work, a lot of
It
relationship
was.
work.
It was a lot of relationship. I had a lot of windshield time in my engineering days. I commuted an hour and a half each way from my hometown of Lansing to Detroit, and again, not very happy, right? So I had a lot of time to come up with crazy ideas, and you know me by now. Every time we talk, I have a different idea that I kind of spit
Yeah.
out. I spit that idea out to my wife, and by the time I got home from my drive, she did all her Google research, and we thought somebody had already created this concept, right? And lo and behold, nobody did. So kind of took a gamble, and it just worked out really well. I mean, it wasn't easy, don't get me wrong, but it just all worked out. It all worked out for me.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, and then any exit is an exit, right? I just love the business. It's such a random and fun one for me because I don't know anything about it, and it's so eye opening that you can make so much money doing something like that just through like licensing and product distribution. It's very clever, and I love learning about new businesses like that. So it's awesome. Talk to me about when you became a dad and the timing of it all. Like when did you become a dad, and when did you start your business? Kind of like what does that timing look like?
Well, that's a fully loaded question, right? 4 kids, man, 4 kids. And it wasn't, I joke around as like, it's really hard to plan for it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I started my career. And then shortly after that, my wife and I had our first child, my daughter, right? So now imagine, starting your career, new marriage, and a new baby, right? And I'm commuting, I'm working. And so honestly, I think back now, I was like, how did we even do it? How did we accomplish what we accomplished? As you again get to know me, I'm one of those folks where when I'm committed to something, I just get it done. The Asian mentality, right? And
Yeah.
there's no time to sit and cry about it, and complain. You kind of just really figure it out, and I think that's one of the things being raised an Asian American, is it's built into us, right?
Yeah.
And so, being parent, I think when I first had my daughter, and I used to tell my friends this all the time, it's like as soon as you see me have my daughter, you'll never see me again. Like, it's one of those deals. Like I'm gonna just stay focused on my wife and kids, and obviously my career. And again, I think it really all worked out for me. The folks that were my friends, continue to be my friends. The folks that didn't, appreciate those type of values, I just never really talked to again. And I think being a dad really changed my mindset in a lot of things. It made me really grow up. You being a father, right? It's like
Totally.
you're not only responsible for yourself anymore, where you can go out and hang out with all these folks. Now you're actually taking care of something you created, right? And
Yeah.
it's your responsibility now to really do the right thing, raise this child up to be a good individual. And that's really what I hone in on with all 4 of my kids. I said, just be a good person. Be that kind, good person, and everything else would just really fall into place.
That's awesome. And did you have to like make those decisions with your wife when you started the business? Because it sounds like you started it after you started having kids.
I did. I have a beautiful marriage, man, and I'm not just saying it to say it, man. I think
No, I believe it.
I hope my wife, gets a chance to listen to this, but I truly believe she's my biggest fan. She's one of those Asian moms, right, that are very critical, but you always know it's the truth, whatever comes out of her mouth, whether it's gonna hurt your feelings or not, right? and I've learned to adjust to that. It took me, a long, long time to not get so offended every time. But in my entire career, Young, I'll be honest, every time, I had this vision and ideas, I would say 90% of the time I always had my wife's backing. And that makes it a lot easier, right? Even when it comes to now, to this day, when we talk about investing into startups or small businesses, the first person obviously I have to run to is her. She typically gives me the nod because I truly think she just believes in me, and I admire that, right? And I think that
It's beautiful.
that really builds a lot of confidence in me, right? But as Asian men or in men in general, we always like to feel like we're the honcho, right? Like we don't need to take advice from anybody. We know better than everybody. But I look at it differently, I really do. I take her opinion, her thoughts, and I respect her. I think that's the key to my marriage and why it's so successful is we respect each other. But I think I respect her, more than the average person would respect their spouse.
That's beautiful. And I definitely can testify to that. I think even in the 2 years that we've known each other, you've brought up your wife's opinions to our conversations multiple times, which is a very strange thing for me. And so I definitely testify. It's a really good insight and notice for me because I definitely insulate my wife from a lot of the business decisions and interactions that I make. But as I get older and things don't ever, business never works out the way you want it to, and there's always shitty moments. And there's moments where I'm like, maybe I need to be doing a better job of bringing her along. And meeting people like you really helped me think about that and how to be a better dad and business person. And so it is really cool that you do that. I love that. That's awesome. But back to the question though. So when did you guys talk about doing the business? She was okay with it? She gave you the thumbs up and she's like, hey, we have a kid, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah. And and I never really got a chance to thank her, man, because she took a pause in her career, honestly, when we actually had my second child, my son Evan. And again, going back to my statement earlier, was she believed in me, right? She's like, I'll step back, raise the family for a few years while you kind of just do your thing, and we'll see what happens, right? Again, back to my statement is the true testimony of the respect, and I think she, I don't make any decisions without her, like you said, but when we came up with the idea, I think we felt like we were onto something. And so we were just folks that didn't want to sit there 10 years later and say, well, we wish we would have done that, and give it it's one of those things where give it a few years. If it doesn't work out, you kind of walk away, right? But thankfully for us, everything kind of just, worked out for us. And we continue, with that same mindset with everything else moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I think that it's so powerful because so many people say so many people say it, but the one that I saw recently was Alex Armozy said that choosing your partner is one of the most important decisions you can make for a business builder. And it's really fun to hear your story because I think that is one of those things that people don't really talk about. Getting your spouse's approval, and not only approval, but also support, is incredibly influential in the ups and downs of building a business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about the hardest things that you had to go through building yours?
Wow, that list is pretty long. Money's always a challenge, right, Young? It's as a startup, as a business owner. I was told, and I truly believe this, that I started a business at the worst economy, I think, in my lifetime, in 2008, 2009 timeframe when the market really crashed, right? So money was not readily available, let's put it that way. And so, I have a big family. I have 4 brothers and 3 sisters.
Oh, wow.
They were nervous for me, to be honest with you, and they really didn't think I could do it. But the beautiful thing, Young, was with my brothers, they were like my first investors. They believed in it. Honestly, I take that back. I don't think they believed in it, but they trust me. Right? And they
supported you.
Yeah, they supported me. Brothers are always going to be brothers, right? And that was really challenging for me. And again, running a business, there's never enough money, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to keep tapping into your circle to convince people that you have the greatest baby, the greatest idea in the world, right? And some folks will laugh at you. Some folks will say you're full of it. Some folks will, okay, let's do this, right? And so that was really, really tough. Now, again, not knowing anything about the tape or CPG world, I had to really learn that. And again, building the relationship. So I took a lot of time and traveled to Asia and built the relationship for those factories to really trust me. And right, being Asian is, in the Asian culture, it's not about business. It's about relationship, culture, one another. And it doesn't happen overnight, and it's times where I had to fake that I knew how to smoke cigars, right? I wasn't a big drinker, and I had to, kind of play the role of knowing how to drink whiskey, right? With a lot of these, factory owners call it that, right? But it took me a few years to do that, and I was thankful that my factories ended up being my biggest financing source for me. And
that's amazing.
So that's really what helped me grow the business. And so I would say that would be the biggest challenge for me at the time. And again, people is always a challenge, right? Finding the right folks to do exactly what you have the vision for the business, right? And believe in your vision and have the same mindset. And that was really tough as well. And you mentioned partners. Yes, that's always a challenge, right? And so I just don't know if there's one thing young that was the biggest challenge for me. I think it was a compilation of things.
Yeah.
Being that a new product taking to the market, in retail you're fighting for space, right? And if you don't have the dollars, you're not going to make it, right? But if you
Yeah.
have the relationship, you have a great chance of making, because that relationship will help you build your brand. And so I
Yeah.
kind of stuck with that core value of mine, is the relationship piece, and believe in paying it forward, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I love that. I also think it's so funny that you're alluding so comically to the Asian business culture. Because it's like it's so funny. I remember my dad, man, it was pretty young, but he would teach me the various rules and cultural norms for drinking with different types of Asians. And I always thought it was the funniest thing. And I'm like, why are there so many rules to this? And depending on the type of Asian, there's different rules. And I mean, it's funny because I've never had to because I'm not really working with overseas Asians, but it was something that he learned and he figured out, because there is that whole cultural norm with just how to fit in. And you're right. I mean, most Asian business people are really relationship based. You know who's also really relationship based? Coming from California, coming to Texas, Texans are also very relationship based. It's really interesting. It's not logical here either. Like, you have to get to know them, and really they have to like you and you have to like them. It's like 3 to 6 meetings before you even start talking business. It's
You know,
pretty interesting. Have you noticed that?
I did. Honestly, like, I feel like Texas is our own country here, right?
It
And
really is. Yeah.
the Texas culture actually has a lot of similarities to our Asian culture. When you meet someone off the bat, it's like kind of guarded, right? Then after the second meal or third meal, and when the Texans are committed to you, they are truly committed. And
Yeah.
they'll go out of their way. I mean, they'll take a bullet for you. I've heard
Yeah.
that. I've heard guys, that I've gotten to know is like, dude, you're like my brother. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's great. And I look at them, and we spend a lot of time together on the golf course. We take trips together. Some of the guys that I've met here is like, I know I could turn to those guys for just about anything. And that's the beautiful thing. And I think that really equates to why Texas as a whole has really evolved, don't you feel? Like in the
Yeah.
business world, right? Very attractive.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah. And I actually, it took me by surprise because I mean, I was born and raised in California. And so everything's very logical and transactional, really good business people there. And then coming here, it just felt so illogical because I was like, wait, it's like we know we wanted to work with each other. Why are we not talking about business? But it took me a year to figure it out, but it's very Asian, quote unquote Asian here, in the sense that no, you have to make friends. You have to they don't care about business until they think that they like you, and that's it matters almost more than the business, and
Absolutely.
it's really interesting. I just thought I'd bring it up because you made that commentary, but I noticed that coming to Texas. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
this
yeah,
kind
no,
of
you're
stigma here.
spot
Yeah.
on. You're spot on, and that's why I really love it here, especially Austin.
Yeah, I do too. It's really nice. So another question I have for you, Min. What do your kids think about your business exit, and what do they think you do right now, and what do they think about you as a dad?
It's really funny. My oldest son always asks me about my business, right? My previous business,
Yeah,
and one of the things like I want to teach my kids is I don't want them to feel like it was really easy, right? And so I don't share too much with them about it, but I do share with them a lot of the struggles that I had. We don't really talk about money, to be honest with you. It's more of the experience, right? And again, I train my kids to just be good people, build that relationship, always shake hands, right? Address the older folks as Mr. and Miss. And so, but my son now that he's 16, he's starting to ask a lot of questions about my business, and I'm slowly kind of, I don't want to use the word training, but educating him into, how to run a business, who to, surround yourself with to grow a business, right? That's really key. And really, the biggest thing is don't give up, right? And that it's just life rules, you just don't give up in general, but it equates to business as well, and so my kids, I don't know if I think I did share this with you. Just 2 years ago, they asked me to start a venture with them. So I think they have been listening to me, right? And so,
yeah,
and that's I feel like getting back into the game, right? It's exciting, but I also want to take it a little slow because I don't want it to get to their head, right? Because I want them to go through the grit and the grind of running a business and don't feel like it just comes naturally easy. Because I can make it come to them fairly easy if I really wanted to, but I'm not gonna do that for them, right? And so, my goal, and I think one of the things you're probably gonna wonder down the road is, what am I doing now, right? I think you kind of asked me that. So my vision was really to build this family portfolio of businesses. I call it our own family office. The goal again is with my 4 kids, if they don't decide to go down the the career of having just a job, right, a corporate job, then I'm hoping they would take over the business and run it for us. And so I'm trying to divert our portfolio into different businesses. Hopefully that it attracts one of or all 4 of my kids, and their skills and their assets, right? And so I have jokingly say I have 6 different personalities for myself, 4 for each one of my kids, 1 for my wife, and then 1 for myself, And so that's kind of the goal, is to build this family office where the kids will have the opportunity, because we had to figure it out ourselves, right? And I want to just provide them the opportunity, but make them work for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so tricky. I mean, I will say that, like, for me, I always struggle with this concept of like how to teach them and the determination, move and achieve something hard, but simultaneously, like, how to just provide for them, because I worked hard. I'm working hard, I should say. I'm not at your level yet, but I'm working super hard right now, and I'm working hard so they don't have to if they don't want to, right? And that's kind of like, it's kind of one of those things that I constantly fight with myself about. It's like, how much do I make them suffer versus to make sure they understand how hard it is to make a dollar, versus how much do I provide for them because I'm suffering for the whole purpose of giving them security. And it's an interesting point of view, and I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts around that. But even more importantly, like the fact that you actually want them to be in the business is really interesting. So you're obviously okay with them if they go get a corporate job or some sort of specialty role as a W-2, but deep in your heart, you actually want them to come do business with you.
I do. I really do. But I really want them to experience the corporate world too. And I tell myself, and I tell my wife this, if that's the path they want to go, I'm absolutely fine with it. Because at the end of the day, I just want my kids to be happy, right? And have, go towards their passion, whatever that is. My passion was business. Theirs might not be. Right? They just might want to go work for somebody 9 to 5 and go about their life. But you just don't know, And I tell my kids this all the time. It's like, I knew at a very young age really what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. The kids nowadays, I just feel like they don't have that, but they just need some guidance. I felt, and I still feel this way, growing up for me personally, was I didn't have that guidance. You know what I mean? I just had to figure it out myself, and it wasn't easy, and I just set certain goals in my life, and not all of them were achieved, but I tried my hardest to achieve, and I just asked my kids to do the exact same thing, set some goals for yourself, right? Yeah. But this will always be here for you.
Yeah, I kind of think about that all the time. I joke. I mean, you know Blue Ocean Pull Service, because that's how we met and we started talking through that. But I talked to Chris about this periodically, about like what our aspirations are for the business and as we get older. And it's funny because I've kind of landed more recently on this concept that like it's like a backstop for me, for my kids. Like, they can go and try to do all the things that they want, be as passionate as they want, try to be happy, and if they end up messing up or sucking, they can always come into one of my businesses and work inside of it. Ideally, they work in it all. I mean, I personally would love it if they worked in the business with me, but I try to think about it as like a security, right? And I know it's a little bit nepotistic to say that, but it's like something that I feel really deeply in my heart, is like that I can provide them a stable income and a stable livelihood if I can build these businesses to scale. And it is, I'm not going to lie, it's one of the driving factors for me even building a service business, is just to be able to say, like, worst case scenario, all else fails, you can come work in one of these businesses. Do you have any sentiment like that?
I do, man. I could tell you, man. How old are your kids now?
6 and 8.
Okay. They're paying attention. You don't think they are.
Yeah.
They'll slowly grab on. And, my daughter, my oldest one, she's 21 now, right? But, I never kind of realized that she doesn't say much, but I know she's paying attention in the back of her mind. And and I come to really find out, young, is like when she's asked to really speak in public, or she's a great golfer, right? So she plays college, but when she did her signing her letter of intent, she mentioned some of these things about me and the business and the grit and grind in her speech that I didn't realize she was really, paying attention to what I was
That's cool.
doing or saying, right? And so
Yeah.
just a word of advice is they are paying attention, and they're listening, man. So but we just all just hope and pray for the best, and like I said, the goal is I just want them to be happy, whatever that
Yeah.
is. But I also want them to have the security that this is always going to be here for them, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. And so then the idea is that you would love it if they worked in the business, but you're very open to them going somewhere else. What does your
Absolutely.
wife think about that?
She loves it, I think. Of course,
Yeah.
we talk about this. So, one of the things that I decided to do before we even moved here, back in Michigan, was when I started the company. Again, as you know, it's busy, right? We're on the go. We're around. We're on the phone or whatever nonstop. I had factories in Asia, so the 12-hour time difference.
Yeah.
I didn't get much sleep, so I created this concept of once a week, my wife and I would just go on a date night. And no kids, no phones. And that's really when we really got to know each other more, I felt. And these are the ideas that I would talk to her about. And I always said I have this vision of creating this family office, family business, so that our kids have something to fall back on, right? And lo and behold, here we are years later, and it's happening.
Yeah.
We talk about these things all the time, and and I'm lucky, like I said earlier, is like my wife really trusts and believes in me. She kind of lets me steer the boat, basically, right? And with her
Yeah.
in the background, making sure we don't drown, right? And so that's kind of how we operate, and it's pretty cool.
It is really cool. And then what does your family think about your business success and kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah.
To this day, my mom doesn't even know what I did.
Really?
My mom is 92, and when I brought my first partner into the business, she thought
Yeah.
he was my boss.
Oh, wow.
And so when I used to go on vacation, my mom would be like, "Did you get permission to leave?" So it's that mindset of we're still working for somebody, right? And
Yeah.
so it's really funny you ask me that, because I giggle sometimes. I'm like, my mom still doesn't, to this day, doesn't really know what I did. And my brothers is almost the same way. They knew I did something special, but they don't know the full detail and the exits. They don't really
Grasp
understand
it.
it. Yeah, so I mentioned they're small business owners, right? But they also work for corporations too. And so being a startup, and having an exit or building, a national brand is not their thing. And again, they're very traditional. They're all older than I am, right? So they're not into social media. They don't understand sports as well as I do. So it's kind of one of those things where, okay, well, he did okay. He's moving, living a good life down in Austin. We're happy for him. And so when we see each other now, it's not about business, really. We just really have a good old time just talking and laughing and crying, right? And I lost my dad in 10, shortly after I launched my business. And I meant to mention this earlier. That was probably the hardest time of my career,
Wow.
because our family was just so tight knit that my dad, he was like the cornerstone, right? Every Asian family, the dad, everybody really looks up to. And my dad's one of those guys that I swear he probably never said more than 1,000 words in my lifetime. But when he spoke, it meant something. And he my parents really trained me of, again, when I say telling my kids to be good people, that's really what they trained me to be, is a good individual. And so when my dad passed, like, our family, it was really tough. But I also believe that was one of the best things that happened to us as a family, because we've never dealt with the death of someone so close, but it really brought us all back together, and and I had two brothers that really never saw eye to eye, right? But because of my father's death, now they're closer than they've ever been in their life. You know what
Wow.
I mean? Like we really just all really came together, and so it taught me a lot. Yeah, it really did, man. Like business is great, but again, going back to the culture, the relationship, and that's what I want to instill into our Asian community here, right? Is it goes a long way, you know, and so that's kind of what I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's really, really tough to lose a dad, especially right after you start your business. But it's really cool to hear you talk about it as the negative and the pros, though. Like the fact that, like, that, obviously is as hard as it was, also had a lot of, like, new open doors, like, relationship building within the family and bringing everybody closer together, which is also very telling about how you think about life and business and work. It's also why I look up to you and respect you so much because you have a very good perspective, on the good and the bad of the world. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, you bet.
Let me let me get a little lighter here because I do want to make sure that I ask you the same question, my rapid fire questions that I like to ask every guest, and make sure I get you back on your way here. But the first one being, if you can go back and tell yourself one thing before having kids, what would you tell yourself?
Ooh, that's tough. That's really tough. Wow. You know, we all have these emotions, right? We all have these thoughts that if we, what we know now, if we knew that back then, things would be
Yeah, totally,
totally
totally.
different. You know, to be honest with you, yeah, I don't know if there's anything I would change, man. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know if there's anything I could tell myself before having kids to now that I would change or do, because
yeah,
before I even had my kids, like I shared with you earlier, I already had trained myself to be kind of what I'm doing today, right? And I'm no, psychic or anything like that. For me, like it's always been when I lay the plan, it seems to kind of work out for me. But if there's anything that I would tell, like before kids is, I think I would tell my kids to again, not give up. You know what I mean? And I see that in them sometimes now with kids. I think it's really hard being a kid nowadays. I really do. With all the outside influences that they have, right? And
so
so
much. Yeah.
I would tell them. So you know what? I'll tell them stay away from social media, right? And I don't want to shelter them, right? But then I would try to limit them almost in a way. Not that I allow them to do everything now, but like certain things I would try to probably tell them not to get involved with, right? In social media.
Yeah.
I hope that
Yeah,
answers
that's
your question.
interesting. Yeah, it totally answers it. And I struggle with it a lot. I mean, to be honest with you, I should stop checking so much social media too. I mean, I think it's just one of those things that's like, we all know it has really inverse and adverse effects that are negative, but it's like so pervasive in our lives right now. And it's like one of those things where you're like, I think everyone could do with using a little less, to be honest with you. I think we could all do better with it. Yeah.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am nervous about my girls though because they're super young and I'm just like they're headed into like the teenage years and this time and day with the technology it's just like I'm already getting a little nervous about it but we'll go from there. Let's move on to another question. So in this next chapter of your life, is there anything that's different about what you think success looks like for you professionally and or as a dad?
My kids always ask me how old I am, right? Because they're trying to figure it out. But I feel like I don't want to really try to, moving forward, right, lay a path that I want to be certain about, So I kind of really take it day by day, to be honest with you. I feel like I've accomplished a lot. I got a great family, healthy kids, a healthy wife. She loves her career. And so I really just take it day by day. I really do. I don't really have a true plan of what's next in the 5-10 years. I have these small businesses and I don't, if it works out great, if it doesn't, I just kind of move on. And so the next 5 years, my goal is to, just really live life, man, because I felt like I missed a lot of that early in my career, just really
Yeah.
focusing on the business, right? One of the things I promised myself when we moved here, and part of the reason why I moved here was to play more golf because I love the game. But when I ran a business and coming from the north, you literally have 3 months to play. If you're lucky, you might be able to play 5 times. And
Yeah.
that's one of my objectives when I moved here was to play more golf and meet more people, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I've been able to do that, and in my next 5 years, I really again want to continue igniting the Asian community here in the businesses. That's really my goal. I've met some man, yourself included, man, some fantastic folks. When I
Mm.
look up to you guys, actually, man, I look at you guys, I'm like, man, you guys are way smarter, right? I was just a hard worker, right? But you guys are able to leverage the technology, right? And I think too, the younger generation now, I don't think they see color, man. Like they look at everybody the same, which I
Yeah.
envy. You know what I mean? I really
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
My chamber is a great example. Like they all look at each other the exact same, from the Chinese community to the Vietnamese kids to the Filipino, the Taiwanese. I mean, everybody's kind of all together.
Yeah.
They don't look at the different nationalities. They just all want to work together to be better. And I love
Yeah.
that, man. I think we're onto something really big here.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's awesome. And I'm very eager to get more involved in the Asian community here in Austin. And I'm super grateful to know you, because I know that when I'm ready and I have the time, you're going to let me in and help me with that. But I'm super eager. Yeah, I'd love to give back to my community. Yeah, I think it's super important. But I agree with you. I think that this next generation has a lot of promise, and they definitely don't have the insecurities and or the biases that I think you and I may have grown up with. But it's pretty good. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Do you have a favorite book or a podcast that you can share with the listeners?
I have two favorite books, man. Honestly,
Yeah, go for it.
the first one I think everybody knows is Shoe Dog, right?
Mm.
Bill Knight story. And I really, when I was reading that young, it was really interesting because again, I'm no Nike, but the process that he went about to start his business was the exact same thing that I did with my tape.
Mm.
I tell people this all the time, man. If you haven't seen the movie American Gangster with Denzel
Mm.
Washington, you need to see it.
Yeah.
Because for one, I love Denzel, but secondly, it talks about Vietnam, but more importantly is how, even though it's in the drug world, but it's business, how he became so successful in going
Mm.
through the source, going directly to the source, and even Denzel in that movie built that relationship for the folks in Vietnam to trust him, right? And to go above and beyond to help him make his business successful, even though it was illegal. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the business mindset of it all is what I really love is that book Shoe Dog and really the movie American Gangster, because I think it really falls in line with each other. I really
That's
do.
awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna go read that book and watch that movie with a different
Oh
lens. It's gonna be
man, you
awesome.
have to, man. As an entrepreneur, you need to. And another advice I'd give you is watch the or read the book The Tipping Point. That's a
Mm.
great book for entrepreneurs, man. Like it'll hit you spot on. I won't tell you the whole depth of it, but those two books I think really I enjoy the most.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great. Thanks for sharing. And then to bring us home, when you're not being an awesome dad and building out a portfolio of family office owned businesses, what do you do for fun? What's your downtime activities?
Golf is my thing, man.
Yeah,
Golf is
yeah.
my thing. I use golf really to get to know somebody for one, because you really have
Mm-hmm.
4+ hours to really
Mm-hmm.
uh, dig into someone's life. You know what I mean? I have jokingly say by the second hole, I would know if I like somebody or not, or if I ever play with them again. If I don't play with you again, that means I really don't like you, right? And so it's really funny. But some of the things that I'm trying to create now, young, and I'm kind of going back to what your question for me earlier was. I've been thinking about it actually. The next 5 years, right, is I'm trying to create experiences for my family. That's my goal. My kids have everything they need, and if they want something, chances are they could probably get it, right? But I kind of took a pivot this past year, and I did something, and I'd love to share this with you if I can, is that, this past Christmas was the first Christmas that my wife and kids and I just spent it alone together. And it was the most beautiful Christmas I've ever had. But the more important thing is the memory we created from that experience was so amazing. And I think my kids will never, ever forget that this past Christmas. And so I'm starting to do things to, show my kids how much I appreciate them. It's kind of odd, right? Like as a parent, you want them to appreciate you. But I'm kind of switching the game a little bit by telling them, believe it or not, how much I appreciate them. But more importantly is I want to keep that door of communication open, is that I understand their struggles. Believe it or not, right? I understand their struggles and what they're going through, and I feel it with them, right? And so that's one of the things that, I'm really focusing on, man, is really just my wife and kids they're everything to me. It's not about the businesses. It's not about, the fancy stuff to me. It's about them. And my goal is to leave these memories with them so that when I'm not around anymore, that they can talk about it and remember it and laugh and cry about it, right? Because I really think we do need to laugh, and I do think we need to cry a lot, and as men and Asian, we don't like to show our emotions, right? But I'm starting to do that more with my kids. I want to show them that I do have feelings. I get hurt too, I get angry too, and it's okay. It's okay to do that. And I'm starting to see that, really come full circle, man. Like my kids hugging me more randomly, like it's just beautiful, man. I can't really explain it, but that's the one thing I've changed in my life moving forward.
That's awesome.
Tell my wife all the time how appreciative I am of her, and I write them letters, and letters they can keep for their lifetime, right? Toys, they play, it breaks, they throw it away, or we give it away. But I started writing these letters to them, telling them how much I appreciate them, and I'm hoping they store it somewhere so when I'm not around, they can show their kids.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love this. That's really powerful, and I think coming from a big family like yours, it's pretty unique and interesting to not go with the family, right? I'm assuming you guys, that was kind of a weird thing, right, for the family to have you not show up to the bigger family.
Yeah, man, because, for years since my career started, my family, my home was where Christmas was for everybody, Thanksgiving, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and from both sides, right? My wife's side of the family and my side of the family. We were always the one hosting. And it was fun, a lot of memories, right? And even when we moved here young for, 6 years straight, every Christmas, my house had 20 people for a week, right, through the New Year's. So this year was just people that I shouldn't say didn't, the folks that we turned down for coming to visit us probably got upset, but they didn't know the reason why I was doing what I was doing. And I don't really care, because those memories and that moment I just created with my family are the only folks that I care about, that will remember, you know what I mean? And so it all works out. And that's one of the things, again, moving forward, is I just want to create these memories with my family, and that they can talk about for the rest of their life and pass it on generation to generation. They're never going to know, I had a fancy sports car. They don't care, right? Or I had a fancy watch, or I bought them a massive, a BMW for a car. Those are things, it's just materialistic. But to share the memory of me writing a letter to them, telling them how much I love them and how much I appreciate them, I think that goes a long way. I really do.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I love it. I love the next 5 years for you. This is really exciting. I'm eager to see how this plays out because I share a lot of the same sentiments as you do, and I definitely aspire to be at that level. But it's really, really inspiring to hear you talk about it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Min, thanks for being on the show with me, man. It's so fun to get to know you in this light and just get to see you on the non side of business because you're sharp as a whip. Well, when the business side, you're a big teddy bear in reality.
Oh God, I'm not that smart, yeah. I'm not that smart. I just pretend to be.
No, you're definitely smart and you're definitely a hard negotiator. I love that in your business side, but. It's incredible to get to know you like this, though, because it deepens my relationship with you and my understanding of you. And getting to know you a little bit better on the opposite side, man. Thanks for sharing.
Bet, man. I wish you the best. I think about you all the time, actually. Where you're at, what you're up to. And just because you don't hear from me, right, young, doesn't mean I'm out of sight. I know what you're doing, the hustle. I understand that. And keep it up. But don't forget who you are, man. Don't forget what makes you, right? At the end of the day, business is business. It's always going to be there, but is young gonna be there, right? As a person, and more importantly, as a person, as a dad, and as a husband for your wife. Don't ever lose sight of that, man. Never. That's the one thing I tell these young entrepreneurs all the time. 'Cause, folks forget that. What really made them is the family that made you.
Yeah.
Man.
Thank you for that. Thanks for that, man. I appreciate it. It's probably going to be weird for people watching because you look so young. You look younger than me. It's it's the Asian gene, yeah. But man, thank you again for being on the show, and thanks for that advice. I really appreciate the words, and thank you for being my mentor. And yeah,
You bet. And give the wife and
we'll
kids a
talk
hug for me.
soon.
All right.
I will. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.